Good evening. It's November 13th, 2025. 2 minutes ago, something extraordinary happened, a message that cut through the static of Washington's noise and hit like a thunderclap. Donald Trump, in a live statement broadcast without warning, issued what he called an urgent warning about Zohran Mamdani, the rising political figure whose name has become synonymous with hidden agendas and quiet manipulation. And within seconds, every newsroom in America went silent. Because this wasn't just another Trump soundbite or a routine political jab. This was something else, a declaration that hinted at knowledge, at proof, and at a level of danger that even his harshest critics couldn't ignore. I've been covering politics long enough to know when fear seeps into the system, and tonight, you can feel it. It's in the trembling voices of the anchors trying to fill airtime, in the evasive language of officials suddenly unavailable for comment, and in the way Mamdani's allies, once proud and loud, have disappeared from public view. Something is breaking in real time, and the establishment can't contain it. Trump didn't just speak, he detonated a truth bomb, one that threatens to unravel more than one man's career. It threatens to expose an entire web of connections that Washington has spent years keeping under wraps. According to Trump's warning, Mamdani's influence extends far beyond what the public has been told. It isn't just about campaign money or local politics in New York City. It's about coordination, the quiet alignment of bureaucratic and financial power designed to push an agenda through every institution that matters. The kind of coordination that doesn't appear in headlines because it happens in silence. In committees, in foundations, in the back channels between lawmakers and donors who pretend to be enemies in public but dine together in private. Trump's tone tonight wasn't boastful or mocking. It was controlled, almost grave. He said, "You don't know the half of what's been happening behind the scenes, but you will soon." That line alone sent Washington into full-blown panic mode. Because when Trump speaks like that, measured, deliberate, it usually means he's holding something tangible. And the timing is no coincidence. Just days after Mamdani's so-called progressive funding web was first whispered about in leaked documents, Trump comes forward with what he claims are proofs, connections, financial trails, and emails that could confirm that what Mamdani presented as grassroots reform was, in reality, a coordinated system of influence reaching all the way to Schumer's inner circle. It's worth remembering that Mamdani built his image on moral superiority, the voice of reform against corruption, the self-proclaimed champion of equality. But if Trump's words are true, that image is about to collapse. Because what's being described isn't idealism. It's infiltration. A slow, patient manipulation of the system disguised as activism. The difference between reform and control often lies in intent, and intent, it seems, is what Trump is finally ready to reveal. In the minutes following the broadcast, sources inside the Capitol began whispering what the mainstream outlets wouldn't, that senior figures had already received private briefings about Mamdani's network weeks ago, but chose to bury it. If that's true, then the cover-up extends beyond one man. It implicates everyone who stayed silent, everyone who calculated that protecting the machine was more important than telling the truth. And make no mistake, Trump knows exactly how to weaponize that silence. His warning tonight wasn't just directed at Mamdani, it was aimed at the entire class of politicians and power brokers who've grown comfortable in the shadows. He said, "You built your empire on lies. Now those lies are coming due." That sentence echoed through the halls of social media like a siren. Millions of Americans tuned in, not out of curiosity, but because deep down, they already suspected it was true. They've seen the patterns, the deals that never get explained, the investigations that disappear, the politicians who rise too fast and fall too quietly. In the hours to come, we'll see two reactions, panic from Washington and clarity from the public. Because once again, Trump has done what the establishment fears most, he's disrupted the script. Every major network had its talking points lined up, every senator had their statements ready, and now none of it matters. Because when someone talks a truth that raw, it changes the entire rhythm of control. Whether you agree with Trump or not, you can't deny that he has a unique ability to expose what others refuse to confront. And tonight's warning about Mamdani isn't just about politics, it's about something much larger. It's about what happens when manipulation meets resistance, when lies finally collide with someone willing to say what others won't. In that collision, power trembles. Washington knows it. You can feel it. The air tonight isn't calm, it's charged. And by tomorrow morning, the truth behind Mamdani's network, his real agenda, might no longer be deniable. If Topic 1 exposed the shock of Trump's sudden warning, Topic 2 demands something deeper, an examination of the structure that made this warning possible, the invisible architecture that allowed Mamdani's influence to spread quietly, confidently, and undetected for far longer than anyone wants to admit. Because the truth we're dealing with tonight isn't just about one politician making questionable moves. It's about the ecosystem that protected him, the network of operatives, consultants, financiers, and ideological gatekeepers who ensured that Mamdani rose faster, fell harder, and reached further than anyone outside the political elite ever realized. To understand what's unfolding right now, you have to recognize how modern political power truly operates. It doesn't rely on elections, or debates, or policy proposals. Those are props, useful for public consumption, but ultimately superficial. Real power lives in the back channels, the think tanks that craft the rhetoric, the advocacy groups that shape emotion, the donors that dictate priorities, and the media outlets that filter truth into narratives that support the machine. Mamdani wasn't just another progressive voice. He was the perfect vessel for a very particular kind of influence, one that feeds on idealism while quietly consolidating control. And tonight, we have to look at how that vessel was built, and who helped build it. Start with the donors. People imagine political donations as checks written by wealthy individuals who want favors. But in reality, donations are investments, and investments expect returns. The groups backing Mamdani weren't charities. They were strategic vehicles, foundations disguised as humanitarian organizations, social justice, PACs with vague missions and enormous budgets, coalitions that claim independence while receiving money from the same handful of ideological billionaires. And these donors didn't just support Mamdani, they shaped him. They picked his talking points, crafted his messaging, and positioned him as the future of a political movement they believed they could control. Then there's the media. Most Americans still believe the press operates as a watchdog, independent, skeptical, fiercely protective of truth. That was never entirely true, but today it's barely true at all. Certain networks champion Mamdani with almost religious devotion, painting him as a moral warrior who represented purity in an increasingly corrupt landscape. Opinion segments turned him into a symbol. Talk shows elevated him. Editorial boards framed any criticism of him as an attack on progress itself. And then, when the cracks in his story began to show, those same networks didn't investigate, they shielded. They redirected. They softened. Because Mamdani wasn't just a politician to them. He was a project. But perhaps the most important part of this invisible structure, the piece that Trump referenced, without directly naming, is the bureaucratic pipeline. People underestimate how powerful unelected offices are. Committees within committees. Sub-agencies buried under federal departments that the average voter has never heard of. These places write rules, allocate funds, and influence outcomes with almost no oversight. And according to Trump's warning, these were the institutions Mamdani had begun infiltrating through proxies, former aides placed in key departments, consultants hired quietly through federal grants, advocacy partners embedded in advisory boards. All under the radar. All coordinated. All deliberate. If this sounds like a conspiracy, it's because Washington has normalized conspiracies, institutionalized them. They hide them in plain sight by calling them task forces and policy groups. But peel the labels off, and the pattern is unmistakable. Mamdani wasn't just advancing ideas, he was advancing a network. He was the public face of a system that was never meant to be public at all. And that's exactly what Trump ripped open in his urgent warning. He didn't just accuse Mamdani of deception. He accused him of engineering influence at a scale that bypassed democracy entirely. Now let's look at Schumer, because no analysis of this network is complete without him. For months, Schumer heralded Mamdani as a transformative leader. But behind closed doors, he treated him like an asset, useful, malleable, strategically placed. And when the leaks began to surface, Schumer didn't address them. He tried to bury them. That silence, more than anything, reveals how deeply entangled he is in Mamdani's rise. Because if Mamdani had truly acted independently, Schumer would have condemned him instantly to protect his own standing. Instead, he hesitated. And in Washington, hesitation is confession. What Trump understands, better than anyone in his generation, is that the public no longer trusts slow explanations or carefully worded statements. Americans respond to raw truth, to plain language, to warnings that bypass the committees and speak directly to them. That's why his urgent broadcast tonight was so destabilizing. He didn't offer nuance. He didn't offer academic language. He said clearly, unmistakably, something is happening behind the scenes that you need to see. And now people are looking. Harder than the establishment expected. Across social media, thousands of users are pulling old footage, comparing statements, assembling timelines. Independent journalists, the ones with nothing to lose, are taking Trump's warning seriously and digging in places the mainstream won't touch. Even some congressional staffers, anonymously, are leaking information because they know the tide has shifted. This isn't just a political controversy now. It's a search for truth. And truth has a momentum all its own. The deeper you dig into Mamdani's connections, the clearer the pattern becomes. This wasn't improvisation. It was orchestration. A slow-moving but deliberate attempt to position himself as a reformer while acting as a bridge between ideological operatives and institutional power. Trump's warning didn't create this crisis, it revealed it. And the reason Washington reacted with fear is because they know exactly how much more could still be uncovered. That's why tonight feels historic. Because we're not watching a scandal. We're watching a structure tremble. For the first time, the people are peering into the machinery that controls their future, and the machinery is blinking under the light. What we are witnessing tonight is not a standard Washington controversy. It's not a scandal contained to one office, one campaign, or one ideological circle. What's unfolding now is a rupture, a breaking point where the gap between what Americans are called and what is actually happening has become too wide to ignore. And Mamdani, whether he intended it or not, has become the symbol of that rupture. His network, his secrecy, his quiet ascent through the lower corridors of power, all of it is now exposed, illuminated by Trump's urgent warning in a way that Washington simply cannot spin, silence, or suffocate. Because something fundamental has changed, the public is no longer waiting for permission to see the truth. They're discovering it on their own. In real time. Without filters. Without intermediaries. The machinery that once controlled perception, the polished anchors, the selective editors, the party strategists, has lost its monopoly. And that loss is reshaping the battlefield of politics in ways that terrify the establishment. Because once people learn how to recognize deception, they don't unlearn it. Once they see the strings behind the puppet show, the illusion never works again. Tonight, that's exactly what's happening with Mamdani's operation. People are pulling the strings into view, tracing each line back to the hands holding it. Former aides who once stayed silent are beginning to talk. Staffers who felt boxed in by loyalty oaths are leaking documents. Even insiders within progressive organizations are anonymously confirming what Trump implied, that the funding web behind Mamdani wasn't activism, it was engineering. Engineering influence. Engineering perception. Engineering control. And the reaction inside Washington tells you everything you need to know. Panic isn't loud, it's quiet. It's sudden, no comments from offices that never stop talking. It's late-night meetings behind closed doors. It's emails marked urgent with no subject line. It's journalists being instructed to wait for more details, which is media code for, we don't yet know how to lie about this. When an establishment that prides itself on narrative suddenly loses its ability to create one, that's when you know something seismic is happening beneath the surface. Trump, for his part, has done what he always does in moments like this. He stepped into the vacuum and defined the story before anyone else could. His warning wasn't just a message, it was a signal that he knows far more than he's revealing. For years, Washington has treated him as an outsider who shouldn't be taken seriously. But the truth is, no one in this era understands political momentum better than Trump. He doesn't wait for the right moment, he makes the moment. And tonight, with a single broadcast, he altered the balance of information in the country. What comes next will not be orderly. The establishment will try to regain control of the narrative. They'll hold emergency briefings, publish carefully designed fact checks, and try to drown the truth in technicalities. They'll claim the documents are misinterpreted, that the ties are overblown, that everything is being taken out of context. But they won't be able to erase the underlying reality. Mamdani's influence wasn't natural. It was constructed. It was fed. It was protected. And Trump just blew the doors off the building. The truth has a way of unspooling once the first thread is pulled. And right now, Americans are pulling hard. They're going back through years of speeches, cross-referencing donors, analyzing grant flows, comparing committee appointments. We are watching a national crowdsourced investigation unfold, not led by institutions, but by the people who have grown tired of being treated as spectators in their own democracy. The very act of collective scrutiny is a kind of rebellion. And Washington has no defense against it. There's a moment in every political era when the old framework collapses, not because someone destroys it, but because people stop believing it. And tonight feels like one of those moments. Mamdani's secret agenda, Trump's warning, Schumer's silence, these aren't isolated events. They're symptoms of a deeper shift, but collapse of trust that Washington can no longer ignore or control. The more they try to contain the fallout, the more obvious the truth becomes. And the more obvious the truth becomes, the faster the old order crumbles. So where does this leave us, the voters, the citizens, the people who still care enough to pay attention? It leaves us standing at the edge of something larger than a political scandal. It leaves us facing a choice between returning to comfortable illusions or embracing the uncomfortable clarity that truth demands. And clarity, once earned, is power. If you're watching right now, if you can feel that shift happening, then this is your moment to stay engaged. Washington is hoping this story fades. They want the outrage to cool, the questions to quiet, the truth to lose momentum. Don't let it. Stay with us. Subscribe to the channel. Hit like. Leave a comment. Your voice, your awareness, is the one thing the establishment can't manipulate. Because no matter how deep the lie goes, no matter how elaborate the structure becomes, truth only needs one thing to survive: people who refuse to stop looking.